You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by XenoPucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome back to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, presented as always by XenoPucks. We're a little behind schedule, mostly on my own fault. I was out of town last weekend, and then the day we were going to do the makeup show, my internet decided it wasn't going to work. I don't know if we had an outage in the area or what, but it was pretty rough. But I digress. We're back. It has been 1 year of Brian and I doing this show, and it has flown by. Brian, what's going on, man?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Last week, I was just sitting at home. I had just gotten home from work, and I was thinking about the podcast, mostly because I'm thinking, like, God, we're really going to put this off for a week. But I was thinking, I'm like, God, we've got to be close to doing this a year. And sure as shit, January 29th of last year was when we uploaded our first episode. I believe it was recorded on the 28th. Yeah, because that would have been Sunday. But yeah, we did our, excuse me. All choked up, apparently, getting emotional. No, in all seriousness, though, it's kind of crazy to think it's already been a year and all the stuff we've done with this show and all the amazing people we've met doing this. And we have one of those amazing people here with us today. He'll be joining the show. He was our very first guest. So if you've been following us since the beginning, you will know who we're talking about. We'd like to welcome back our good friend of the show, Ben Palocko. Ben, how you doing?
What's up, boys? It's good to be back. Can't believe it's been a year.
I know, isn't it? It's crazy how fast time flies.
That's good to have you back, man. I'm over the moon for this.
Yeah. Andy texted me and he's like, "Hey, man, you want to come on for the 1 year anniversary?" And I was like, kind of laughed, and I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, 3 months ago, dude.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, hey, if you want to be technical, we did have you on. What was it? Was that for the trade deadline we had him on?
We had him on for, I think it was. No, I'm pretty sure preview.
We talked. Was that what it was?
It was a playoff preview because Ben and I had like the same Final Four, and then our brackets were both melted in the first round. So,
all right. Well, now that we got Ben back on the show, I could say, remember, I wouldn't shut up about, hey, the Panthers are going to win the cup this year, and they did. So
they did. Yeah, they
now
did.
The Bruins are pissing me off this year. So
yeah,
hockey's all over the place. So, let's dive right into this shit because I'm excited, and we got a lot to cover and not a lot of time.
Yeah, we do. So I want to start, Ben, with you, actually. Now, obviously, again, those of our listeners who have been with us since the beginning know you. They know what you do. But since your last appearance on this show, we have picked up quite a bit more listeners. So I want to give you the time to, reintroduce yourself and talk about the business and what you do and kind of talk about your past with hockey as well as it relates to this show.
Yeah. So I started getting into hockey. I live in Cleveland, so I got into hockey when we had the Cleveland Lumberjacks. They were the old farm team for the Penguins at the time. This was like mid-90s, late 90s, and got really into hockey. Kind of started playing late, like, according to a lot of players. I started in like 6th grade playing travel hockey. Ended up playing high school, juniors, and then college club hockey for Ohio University. And after that, just men's league, coaching high school. So I've coached high school the last 10 years in the Cleveland area and continue to play men's and like throughout, growing up in college, I got really into lifting and stuff because the junior hockey coach was like, "Hey man, you're good, but you're tiny." And like, cause I was like 140 pounds, like as a full grown 18-year-old. So I was a late bloomer, started lifting and like blew up from lifting, got faster, got stronger. I'm like, damn, like, training is awesome. Like it's making me so much better at hockey. So I had no interest in really doing college from like an academic perspective. I wasn't like super into school, but I was like, yeah, I want to go play hockey. So if I got to be there anyways, like I got to pick something to study. So I studied exercise physiology and kind of ran with that as like my, when I started doing like personal training and stuff, I was mainly working with hockey players and, fairly small niche when you think of the whole gamut. So I kind of had to broaden out a bit there and like ended up doing a lot of general health fitness stuff. But my business kind of started with hockey, and obviously it's been huge passion. So nowadays I'm just diehard fan. Like I said, still coach high school and play. And I always like when I have a client that's a hockey player training for hockey, or maybe just even like a guy that play or a gal that plays, adult league that wants to get in better shape. So for the most part now, I do online health fitness coaching, and it's for, anybody, anyone looking to kind of simplify fitness, drop some pounds, put on some muscle, kind of transform their body that way.
Awesome.
That's good stuff.
And good chance here now. So you are, your big platform is Instagram. So what's your handle on there? Just so people interested in what you do can reach out to you and find your services. Yep.
Instagram is the main social, just / Ben Palocko, first, last name. So you can grab it from the show or the description. And yeah, I got a website, but also like people, I had the high school kids making fun of me the other day. It's like, you got a website? Like, who has a website anymore? I don't know. Like, I thought that was still relevant, but
hey, I was going to say, maybe, man, I guess we're all getting old then, because I thought that was a normal thing to do too.
Yeah,
I got chirped for it.
I was like, man, I'm 32 years old, and I'm like, one of the first things I did when we started the show, I was like, we got to make a website. So, sorry, I guess that was a boomer thing of me to do. I guess. What do I know? Guess we're all old now. Oh shit.
Yeah, that kind of blows my mind. Actually, I just assumed, everybody has a website, right? But
I'm going to take our website down now.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe that's just old school. We're the old heads now, which I never thought I'd call myself old at 28, but here we are. Let's see here. So we do have a lot of hockey stuff to talk about. Given that Andrew and I did not do a show last week, we missed out on the blockbuster of blockbuster trades. So we would be remiss if we did not start our hockey segment by talking about the Mikko Rantanen trade that happened. I believe that was last Friday. So that trade comes down. It was really kept under wraps for a while too. I was kind of surprised that nothing really leaked out until the trade happened. But Mikko Rantanen and Taylor Hall go to Carolina in a blockbuster deal. It's a 3-way trade. Going the other way to Colorado is Jack Drury and Marty Necas, which I think is a decent return for Colorado, but it's still left a little bit to be desired, in my opinion. And then Chicago, who brokered the deal to retain 50% of Mikko Rantanen's salary, also gets a 3rd-round pick from Carolina in this trade. But obviously the big fish in this one was Mikko Rantanen. Excellent player. Famously couldn't really get a deal going with the Avalanche. And so because they couldn't come to terms on an extension, now he's in Carolina, and Necas goes to Colorado, where I think both players are a good fit on the teams that they're going to. But the thing that does concern me is that now that and we'll get to this later, the salary cap is going to be going up almost $20 million in the next couple of years. And so now this trade almost feels like it didn't really need to happen, because the Avalanche probably had the room to make this extension. And now I think it's going to look a little silly in the future. But what do you guys think? Who are the big winners and losers of this trade? Because there's been a lot of different opinions, and I'd love to know what you both think.
I'm going to let the man of the hour go first.
All right. So I will say I was surprised by this one. I'm just from listening to some different interviews and stuff, and including the Mark Moser, who does the audio and stuff for the Avs. He just kept saying, we haven't heard a whole lot, but all indications are he's going to sign. Even Mikko Rantanen himself said that he was surprised by the trade, right? I heard that the talks, they were in talks, they always say, right? Talks were ongoing, things seemed good. And then I guess he was caught off guard. And from some of the interviews I saw with McKinnon and the coach and stuff, they were a little bit caught off too. So it kind of speaks to a bigger thing about how much, the current coach and star players should be looped in with this kind of stuff. But I think, I don't know if it's just a personal thing or what, but you can't let Mikko go. You can't let a guy like that go. I mean, they always say, right, whoever gets the best player wins the deal. I think that kind of rings true here, but the thing is, he's not guaranteed re-sign. But Carolina's okay with doing that. They did that with Gensel last year because they think that they're right there, and that what's the knock on them, right, every year? Okay, not counting goaltending, we know that, but the knock is that they can't get it done because they don't have any star power, right? They can't get over the hump. They can't get into the cup final because they don't have that guy that can just be a difference maker. So even though they don't have him signed yet and might even not get him signed, they got that guy, and I think in their management group and with that franchise, they feel like that was what they needed, right? So
Yeah.
I think they did really well. The Avs, you could talk about the guys they got back. Obviously, like Brian just said, they got good players back, sure, but I just don't love it because you have those guys for a couple years, but you lose Mikko Rantanen, who is a stud in the playoffs. He's a stud. His playoff numbers are crazy. There's only I think 3 guys left on that Colorado team or something like that. It was 3 or 5. It was a small number that were on the last Cup team. So they're they're kind of a shell of their former selves. And I think they made that move to acquire Blackwood and net, which was oh man, the Avs are
that was
they
game
got their
breaker.
goalie, they're going for it this year. And then you lose one of your 2 big dogs up front, and now I just feel like they're kind of deflated from that a little. It's just weird.
Right.
I just feel like the Avs are not as good.
Well, and for me, I'm sorry, I'm not cutting you off, am I?
That was it. No. Take
Okay.
it,
No, I feel like, oh man, I don't want to make this comparison because it's 2 completely different situations with 2 completely different teams. But in the sense of you have to keep a franchise player like that, it reminds me of Tampa with Steven Stamkos during the offseason. You don't let it get to that point. And I was listening to 32 Thoughts the other day, and Elliot Friedman was saying that there was a point in the negotiations for Colorado where they started to go south with Mikko, and it's everything was fine. They were working towards a deal, and then he said it was like somebody flipped a switch, and it was just shit hit the fan, and it was all right, let's get rid of him. So as a GM, you have to be smarter that you can't a player of that caliber has such a massive impact on a team, and to let him go so suddenly is just, it's bad juju for the whole team. And we spent all of last season talking about Colorado almost every episode because of their damn goaltending situation. Now they get that figured out this year, and now here we are with a whole new problem.
Yeah.
So what's going on in Colorado? Yeah.
So I want to look at this from the perspective of all 3 teams, because first of all, I want to say the least important part of this is Chicago, but I don't know what the fuck Kyle Davis is doing. I don't think this guy knows how to run an NHL team. But that's beside the point. I just think retaining 50% of the salary for a player that, I mean, again, it's only for the rest of the season. Obviously, he's got to get an extension done and blah, blah, blah. But retaining all that money and getting a 3rd round pick just seems kind of And the Chicago's made a lot of bad management decisions, so that's a separate topic for a separate day, but I wanted to at least mention that. From Carolina, so I famously dump on the Hurricanes a lot. I always think that they put together a really good team, but I don't think they're well coached enough, and it kind of shows in the playoffs. They kind of get their run out of the building in the later rounds of the playoffs every year when it starts to get down to the best of the best, and it just seems like they can't hang. So Ben mentioned last year they go out and they get Gensel. Obviously, they weren't able to keep him there. And this year, now they go out and they get Rantanen. One thing Carolina is really good at doing that I will always give them credit for is that they are always like, hey, let's fucking go for it again this year. Like they double down every year. They go and try and get a big fish. They did it last year. They did it this year. Unfortunately for Carolina, the thing they keep failing to address is the goaltending. Freddie Anderson is, when he's good, is great, but he's almost never healthy long enough to stay in there for a sustained amount of time. And who's the backup there? Kachetkov. And that's so you have two non-starting options for me for goalies in Carolina. So while I love this trade for them, I think they came out looking the best of the three teams in this deal. I still think that they didn't answer the right questions by making this move. I think Rantanen certainly makes them a better team. He's an outstanding player, and there's no doubt in my mind that Colorado will probably miss him, and Carolina will love having him, but not addressing their goaltending will probably once again be their downfall, because it was their downfall each of the last 2 years when you could argue they had probably one of the best teams on paper as far as the forwards and defense were concerned. From the Colorado perspective, again, Ben mentioned this too, you lose an elite, like among the best of the best in playoff performers. I mean, he's a great regular season player too. Right now this season, in 53 games, he's got 66 points, 26 goals, 40 assists. I mean, there's no question that this is one of the best players in the league. So to give him up to get Marty Necas, who is a good player. I mean, Marty Necas is an outstanding player too. but you get Jack Drury, who on a good day is a third liner. I think that's kind of where Colorado, again, you start to kind of have a diminishing return there because Natchez is good, but he's not as good as Rantanen. So all you've done now is you've upset your locker room and you've lost a really good player and replaced him with a guy who's good, but not as good. So again, Colorado this year goes and makes the big move for Blackwood. They solve their goaltending issues. They're great for, a month, and then they blow it all up by trading away one of the best players in the league. I don't love the move for Colorado. I still think they're very good and could still see them hoisting the cup, but unless there's another move coming from them, I certainly think this trade hurt them bad on the ice and off the ice.
I want to say to your point, when you look at this trade overall, I wouldn't say that there's necessarily a winner or a quote unquote loser in this trade. I think it just works out slightly not as good for Colorado, but I wouldn't by no stretch would I say they lost the trade by any means, because
I don't want to say that either because Natchez is, I don't want to take away how good of a player Marty Natchez is. He's good, and I think more time playing with McKinnon or even with Middlestat if they put him there, whoever he ends up playing with, I think he'll do fine. He's a good enough player, and I actually think Natchez's numbers now, because he'll get power play looks with McKinnon and Makar, I think his numbers will actually improve. But that's not the issue. It's that you gave essentially, I don't want to say gave away, but you traded away a guy like Rantanen who's just so unbelievably on a level of his own. And again, your return is not as, it's just not as good. And I know, again, Natchez, I believe, has term still, so it's a good move. It's a player you can keep, but man, I just don't see it. Now, this could all be washed out if the season ends and all of a sudden Colorado has a change of heart and they go and they offer him a shitload of money, and now you have Rantanen and Natchez. But that hasn't happened yet. That would be terrifying for the league if it did happen. But my biggest takeaway from this trade for Carolina as well is just that, again, I think they're the clear winners of this trade, but they need to make a move for a goalie. There's guys there's John Gibson out there. I'm not saying he's the best goalie, but he's going to be healthier than Freddie Anderson. He's in a good day. He's better than Freddie Anderson. Ironically, they used to be a tandem together in Anaheim too. So that'd be funny if they played together again. But just a crazy ass trade. I think I could speak for all three of us there when I say nobody really saw this coming.
No, I think it threw everybody off. So sorry we're the last to report on it, but
we could have been the first.
Yeah, I know. My bad.
That's all right. No worries.
I'll take full credit. Reasoning behind my absence last weekend, I, on Friday, messaged my buddy and said, hey, you want to go to the Wisconsin Badgers-Michigan hockey game? And he said, sure. So I literally hopped in my car here in Cleveland and drove right to Wisconsin. And then we went to the game on Saturday, and then I came back on Sunday or Monday, whatever day it was. Yeah. So, that's what happened. My fault. I apologize.
All good. No worries. We're here recording now, and that's all that matters. I also we completely snubbed Taylor Hall in that trade discussion too. So Taylor Hall traded for the 85th time in his career,
by the way, again, Hart Trophy winner moved, right?
Yeah, former Hart Trophy winner Taylor Hall, which is crazy to think, but he did have that unreal year. And
0-time Stanley Cup champion Taylor Hall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
first or number one overall pick.
Not his fault.
Hall himself said he's kind of getting tired of moving around, and I get it. And again, he's another player where I definitely think him going to Carolina. I think that's a huge upgrade for them too. It's obviously not the impact level that Rantanen has, but that's still a very good player who's got a great skater and has a really good shot. So he's not what he used to be, but he's still a very effective player. And I think Carolina will reap some of the rewards of that. I just, again, pause when I see their goaltending, but I digress. There was another big trade that we had, and I believe this came out Friday night. JT Miller, originally a New York Ranger, is going back to the Rangers in a big trade. So it's Miller, Brandstrom, and Dorrington going to the Rangers in exchange for Philip Hedl, Victor Mancini, and a first-round pick. It says it's protected, so I assume that's lottery protected. That tweet's from BR Open Ice. But this is a good trade for the Rangers. It's a pretty low risk trade. The community likes the guy. He was there with the Rangers when they made their Stanley Cup final run in 2014. He's a good player. Obviously, there are layers and layers of shit that happened with Vancouver and with Pettersson and all the drama there. So I think a clean slate is going to help this guy a lot going back to New York. He can definitely have an immediate impact on the team. They're hurting for some skilled players to step up. So if they're going to climb back into this playoff race and be for real, I think he's definitely a guy that helps you do that. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, I think this trade is fascinating because these are the two shit shows of the league this year, Vancouver and the Rangers, right? Like two teams that, okay, Rangers won the President's Trophy last year. Okay. Vancouver, took 10 steps forward. They got further than everyone thought they got. And they keep saying, okay, well, our starting goalie's not even here. So like, watch out when Demko comes back, right? Then this year starts dumpster fire in New York. I don't know what's going on there. The thing with Trouba, and then he comes out and says that was bullshit. Like the players kind of like quit for a little bit, like did this to management. So it's like, and then meanwhile in Vancouver, there's this like, it's like, two girls in high school that are going at it with Pettersson and Miller apparently behind the scenes. So it's interesting how they were able to make this work, right? Because like it just so happened that way that both of these scenarios kind of fit the other, right? In terms of just like culture and all that stuff. So for on the ice, I agree with Brian. I mean, Miller's a stud. I love the guy, like regardless of whether, he has something, I don't know, they talk about off ice or he's a hard ass or something. I mean, he's an Ohio guy, so I like him for that reason. He's a competitor out the ass. I think he's a great selection for the US Four Nations team. And you're getting a guy who put up 100 points just a couple seasons ago. Again, played in New York. So he feels like a Ranger to me, kind of. It almost seems like he's back where he belongs and not just because he was drafted there. So I think they need that. Both locker rooms obviously needed a shakeup, and I think that's most importantly what this is going to do. I'm kind of a guy that's like very much into, like a lot of people will say like, oh, on the ice is on the ice and in the locker room is in the locker room. I believe there's a direct correlation. I don't think it's totally separate, right? I think there's a direct correlation. Yeah. The psychology of the game and for any level, but especially at the pro level, is so huge. And when you talk the ultimate goal of winning the cup, the teams that are the tightest and feel like a brotherhood and feel like a family, those are the teams that win every year, right? Those are the teams that win. Yeah. So these two teams both have aspirations of getting there sooner than later, and they're the opposite right now in terms of a brotherhood. So it'll be interesting to see what this does for them. Yes, on the ice, but bleeding from the locker room. So that's my biggest take. Is almost, I think of it more of like the fascinating with like the dynamics of it.
I think you said something about both teams needed a shakeup, and I'm glad you did. Because I say the Rangers needed not just a shakeup, they needed a whole earthquake. And I think to an extent that's kind of what this is for them, because you're talking about a team that went from Eastern Conference Final last year to absolute garbage this year. I mean, something's got to give at this point. And I think this is a big enough yet subtle enough move to kind of shake things up for them. I think it's a really good thing for the Rangers going forward. Now, do I think they're going to flip the switch and become an absolute juggernaut, win the Stanley Cup? No, but I think this is the kind of move that starts to send things back into the right direction to a certain extent. And you're 100% right when you say the locker room chemistry absolutely carries out onto the ice. And I mean, you can speak to that as a former player, obviously. That locker room chemistry goes a long way, even off the ice. Everything's centered around chemistry, I think. And I think a really good example of that, not to sound biased here, but was last year's Florida Panthers. Those guys were as tight could be. Even Paul Maurice, their coach, you can see videos of him in the locker room. Like he'll cuss them out on the bench, but in the locker room, you guys know what needs to be done here. We worked our ass off to get here, and I love every single one of you. That whole team, that was the poster child for brotherhood, I would say. And they won a cup out of it. So yes, I say locker room chemistry goes a long way. But I'm interested to see what this does for JT Miller on a personal level, as far as personal performance and headspace as well. I mean, is this going to be a negative or a positive impact on him? That's something that we're going to have to wait to see. But I do think for the Rangers as a whole, this puts them in the right direction.
Yeah, I think so. And it's worth mentioning. I mean, pretty much every guy that's in this trade, I think a change of scenery could do all of them some good. I think, like you look at Hedel, he battled. Obviously, dealt with a lot of injury issues, but probably hasn't gotten the playing time in New York that he would like. And I think going to Vancouver, there might be a little more room for him to wiggle up higher in the lineup. But for JT Miller, again, nothing's really gone right for the Rangers this season. The goaltending hasn't been great. Zibanejad and Trocheck, I think, have both left a lot to be desired as far as their production. And so I think Miller is a guy who, again, he's played there. He can handle playing in a big city. He's done it before. I think in an even more enhanced role now, I think he'll flourish there. But I think the hope is that he can get guys like Zibanejad going too. Because, I mean, most nights you're going to get the best of Artemi Panarin, but you need more out of Zibanejad. I mean, if he was the first line center there, he's got to be the driving force. And now if Miller's going to be there, hopefully he can get those other guys to get their legs under them and get going. Because if the Rangers are going to get in the playoffs, there's just, I mean, something has to change here. They just have been so bad and unwatchable. And then of course they go and get their clock cleaned by the Bruins yesterday. So. By the way, David Pastrnak yesterday picking up his 18th career hat trick as well. So great performance from him and the Bruins, who are fighting to get back into the playoffs as well. But for the Rangers, again, hopefully this trade is the kind of shakeup they've been looking for, and hopefully Miller flourishes now in a new environment, but with an organization he's familiar with.
And I'm sorry that I piggyback so heavily off of your points, Ben, but I thought you brought up two really great things when you were talking, and it was just easy to carry off of. So
hey, carry it, man. I was gonna throw this out to you guys real fast because I was just thinking about it. Like, where do you think Miller's gonna play? Because Brian just said you got Zibanejad there and you got Trocheck, who've been really their 1-2. Trocheck's been great with Panarin, so I don't see them separating them. Like, you can't have Miller come in and, like, what does he knock those guys down? Does he knock Trocheck down? Does he move to the wing? What do you think?
I think well, and I think you're right about Panarin and Trocheck being good together, but I think it's been no secret that I think Zibanejad's really left a lot to be desired from Rangers fans this year. I think you either stick Miller with him and see if that's the kind of boost he needs to get going, or if they pair them together and it doesn't work, then maybe you slide Zibanejad down the lineup into a 3C role, because Miller can play first line center. He can play against the big boys on most teams, and so I think that's a kind of a risk-free move to make for them. But if they can put him with Zibanejad and they can get Zibanejad going again, I think that really, really, really helps them where they need it most. I mean, every team needs depth down the middle, but yeah, Zibanejad's really got to find another gear here, and hopefully a guy like Miller can get him going.
I was going to say the same thing. You don't want to break up what Panarin and Trocheck have going right now. That's just silly. And I know you could argue, okay, so either you put Miller on the same line with Zibanejad, or you replace Zibanejad with Miller. And let's say Miller underperforms, or he's not even as good as Zibanejad. And I'm not saying Zibanejad's been good. I'm just saying he's not performing to even what Zibanejad is doing. Then what do you do? Okay, well, you got to look at things from the bigger picture. Yeah, the on ice product right now in New York isn't that great, but on paper, this is a good team. Like, they have a lot of good offensive weapons. There seems to be just a small missing link somewhere, and again, I think this trade is where things start to turn around for them. I will say I don't think replacing Zibanejad with JT Miller is the answer. I think putting them on the same line is the right answer. I think they need to play together. I think that gives Zibanejad a good boost. I don't agree with taking Zibanejad off the ice, or not off the ice, but knocking him down.
Yeah.
Him at 3 would be odd, wouldn't it? Like,
yeah, it would be, but I believe he had, I want to say he was a third line center in Ottawa. Now, this was eons ago and much earlier in his career, but I think he has played in some depth roles before, so I don't think it's anything he can't handle. And truthfully, if it works out with Miller at 1C, I mean, if you could go 1, 2, 3 down the middle with Trocheck and Miller and Zibanejad, if he's playing well, I think that's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
even if it is unconventional. I mean, again, it has been forever since he's played in a lower spot in a lineup like that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if it could work out that way. I mean, you see now this is a bad example because the Leafs don't win in the playoffs, but they usually go down the middle 1, 2, 3 with Matthews and Tavares and or Domi, and so they always kind of mix those guys. And on the right night, if you can get, if you can get 3 elite centers going and playing at an elite pace, and I'm not saying Trocheck and Zibanejad are super elite, but they can be, and they can play like it a lot. I mean, I think that's great, even if it is unconventional.
Yeah, I'm with you. You can keep going. For some reason, I just got a notification that the battery on this is low, even though it's plugged in. So bear with me for a second.
I was going to say, well, hopefully it doesn't die while it's plugged in.
Yeah, you do what you got to do. I'll be back.
All right. Well, another trade that we can get to, a little bit of a lesser trade, but between the Flames and Philadelphia Flyers. So going to Philly will be Peltier and Kuzmenko. So Kuzmenko comes over to Calgary after struggling with Vancouver. Kind of has a little bit of a resurgence, but has really kind of fallen off again. Peltier, I thought this was really the only confusing piece of this trade, because I thought Peltier was really kind of acclimating himself to his community in Calgary, but he goes to Philly as well. And the return for Calgary is Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. And I think this is a great trade for Calgary, who I in my season prediction for them said this is going to be a team that's spinning its tires all year long. And just kind of weather the storm this year, because you lost Markstrom. The team's not great. Like, it is what it is. But man, if they've really stepped it up. And I think, Craig Conroy really is sticking his neck out there for them and trying to add pieces to bolster this roster, which, along with some elite goaltending from Dustin Wolf, but as a whole is still playing very, very well. I think this is a great move by them to go out and get some guys that can really solidify their lineup. It's nothing game breaking. It's not like they're the ones who went out and got Rantanen or something, but with the way they're playing, it's not really the trade they needed either. They just need guys that can lock it down and be effective and chip in on special teams as needed. Like, I felt like this is a great move for Calgary. I don't know what the fuck the Flyers are doing, but for Calgary, I thought this is a great move. And again, if Dustin Wolf keeps up his likely Calder-worthy season here, I think the Calgary really could make some noise down the stretch.
Yeah, I'll jump in while Andy's getting situated. So I agree with what you said. For me, this trade is kind of indicative of where each team thinks they're at, right? So with Philly, it's been well documented. They're very future focused. They're really not concerned about right now. It almost seems like last year, they're like, oh, damn it. Like, we're good already. Like, I think they're okay with having even taken maybe a small step back this year, because they're truly focused on who do we want to get us to the promised land, like in 4, 5, 6 years, or whatever their timetable is. They're very future focused. And I think they're okay with moving guys that they don't clearly see in that picture. Right. So it's like, I've heard rumblings, but like, they just didn't think Farabee and Frost were guys that were going to, whether they maybe just never fit Tortorella's mold or just the Flyer mold, whatever it is. We've been hearing for a while that those guys were available. So they get moved to a team in Calgary that is also well documented, that they don't think they're rebuilding, that they want to retool, and they very much think they're still competitive. And they have guys like Kadri and Huberdeau and Anderson on the back end, and now the stud rookie Wolf. So they get a couple guys that can step right in and maybe in a different system provide some offense. I mean, both of those guys can put up some numbers. So I think it kind of makes, while obviously not as sexy as the first two we talked about, I think it makes sense for both teams. And I think just general commentary, I think it's cool that we're having this conversation about 3 trades with like significant players, right? In what was late January, which is cool. Because it's like usually we're chomping at the bit for stuff, and it's not until trade deadline that there's any buzz. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. Real quick, Andrew, before you make your comment, I just want to say you mentioned the Flyers being future focused, and I do agree to an extent that they are, they're working towards building something in the future. The thing that bothers me is that Farabee and Frost are both 25 and younger. Farabee is 24, Frost is 25. And so you can be a future focused organization, but by the time this team is ready to compete and be, one of the elite teams in the league, I mean, these guys may still be at, they'd be probably towards the end, but they'd be in their prime, so to speak. And I just wonder if maybe they'll live to regret this trade. And I'm not saying, again, I said these guys aren't game breakers, but they're very good players who have grown in the Flyers system. And I feel like throwing all that away is just for Kuzmenko, who's been not great. and Peltier, who is, you don't really know quite what you're getting because the sample size isn't big enough. But I just wonder if the Flyers are going to live to regret this one. I think the Flames made out very well on this. But go ahead, Andrew.
I was just going to say the exact same thing. I think the Flyers are, well, they're the Flyers, man. I think this is a one of those moments or one of those trades you look back on, and you're like, shit, that was stupid. So, but great move on Calgary's, and I don't really have a whole lot to say because Ben did a really good job covering it, at least the last part of what I heard. So, that's all I got.
To me, it's just like, I don't know if it's because I spent some time watching that Flyers series where they go behind the scenes and like in the boardroom and stuff, but like,
yeah,
I just think they're very, and also because of, we had Tortorella in Columbus. He's my favorite coach that we've had in Columbus. So like, I know him too, and I know has more involvement in that organization than a head coach typically does.
Yeah,
and because I know Jones and Briere like give him a lot more leash and they listen more. And I just think, this is just a theory, that they're making these choices based on what they think those guys have guts wise, right? So it's like there's the performance of like, oh yeah, good players. Brian's right. I mean, those guys could pop off in Calgary and like it looks pretty bad on paper, and it might, right?
Yeah.
But like, to me, I think that they're more so making those decisions on like, talking to John and stuff like, hey, you've seen these guys go, like you've seen the games that get hard. Like, what do you think? Like, are these the kind of guys that like deep down, right, that are going to take a bullet for the next guy? And,
right.
and if the answer is no, I don't think they even care so much about how many points they're going to put up in 3, 4, 5 years. I think they truly,
that's true.
I think they're truly approaching that. And you kind of tell, like, even with the return, like, no, it's not an upgrade for sure. And there's some major unknown there, but I don't think they care so much. Like, because they know if those guys do get good, they're gonna have to pay them, right? Money's always a part of it too. If those guys get good, we're gonna have to pay them or lose them. And if we don't think that they got the guts to take a bullet for the next guy, then we might as well shake them free now. So I think it's almost speaking more to like just a theory, but like knowing a little bit of what I know about those guys, I could see it being like a bit character related.
Right. Yeah.
That could, well, it's always nice to get a coach's and former players' perspective on this, because it's something I would have never thought of in a million years. But no, I think, again, immediately it looks like Calgary wins this trade, but we'll see how it ages. I mean, it could look very good or very bad. You just never know until the products hit the ice. But I do agree with your point on Tortorella, where he's a guy who only wants players in his lineup who are going to dive on a grenade for him every single game if they have to. And if he's got input, if he's got big input with management, then I think you might have really just hit the nail on the head with that. I mean, I think I never even thought of it from that angle. So that's a very good point. Andrew,
like having him on the show.
Yeah, I would say somebody needs to know what they're talking about, because it's not us.
Well, one thing I want to throw out there real quick. I was talking to a buddy of mine who listens to the show. Right now, I'll let him remain nameless because I didn't really get permission to put his name out here. But he was talking to me about the 2 times we had Ben on prior to this. And he goes, every time he's on the show, it just sounds like 3 buddies sitting on a patio talking about hockey. So I guess everything flows really well when we have Ben on the show. So we'll consider Ben our part-time host of the show.
Yeah.
Get me on the payroll, guys. Come on.
Yeah. Hey, as soon as we're on one, you
I
can
was
be
going
on.
to say, as soon as we're on the payroll, we'll get you on it.
Yeah, I'll let you know. I'm gonna go on TikTok and hope the roses start coming in.
Yeah. Maybe it's time to message our XenoPucks buddies and say, all right, let's open up the pocketbook. No.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So speaking of money, the NHL announced the salary cap is going way up the next 3 seasons. So for the next season, the upper limit of the cap will be $95.5 million. For the following season, $104 million. And for the 27-28 season, which is only 3 seasons away, which is scary, $113.5 million. So the cap right now, I believe, is at $88 million. I think it's an even 88. So we are seeing substantial jumps the next 3 seasons. So where a lot of superstar players in this league are going to be due for some big raises. You look at guys like McDavid, who's up at the end of next season. Kaprizov's up at the end of next season. Rantanen's going to need a new deal now. McCarr's going to need a new deal, I think, in a couple of years. Matthews. So a bunch of huge names in the league are going to be looking for contracts in a couple of years, and we're going to have, 25 million more dollars to play with over these next few years. So I assume we're all going to be in the same boat on this, but I'd love to see what you guys think, as I think this league is about to go gung-ho with some of the dollar offers we see offered to the league's best players as they renew their contracts.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a fan of salary cap for any sports league. I'm a firm believer that baseball should have one. Right now, it's not even MLB baseball; it's Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, it's the
baseball.
Los Angeles Dodgers playpen is what the
Yeah,
MLB
I mean, and that's exactly why I'm a firm believer in salary caps, because there's so many small market teams that, given the opportunity, could be just as good as all these big market teams. But just don't financially have the ability. I'm not going to use baseball teams as an example because we're not a baseball show. We're a
football show. Yeah, thank you.
So
we'll get to football in a bit. I got some shit to talk, but keep going.
My thing with the salary cap is, though, once you start raising it astronomically, I feel like you're almost eliminating the point of having a salary cap, to a certain extent. Now, I mean, 88 to 104 is a pretty significant jump. And I think what's the end cap? Like, it's like 113, isn't it?
Yeah. So again, next season, 95.5, the following season, 104, and the season after that, 113.5.
Yeah.
So it's going up $7.5 million each of the next 3 years.
I mean, and I don't want to take too much time, so I can let Ben get in here too. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that deserve to make a lot of money. That'll be due for pay raises. So I do think it's a good thing, but at the same time, I'm always a huge advocate for professional athletes make way too much money as it is. That being said, hockey players are definitely on the lower end of that spectrum for sure. So overall, I think it's a good thing. It's just, that's a huge fucking jump.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Ben, what's kind of running through your mind with this huge jump that we're going to see?
Yeah, I'll try and take a little different perspective to give us something to chew on here. So this is not entirely a unique thought. There's a guest on NHL Network Radio that I listen to while I sleep to get my hockey info. I'm trying to remember who it was, but he made a really good point I was thinking more about. So the numbers going up, we can, great for hockey, right? Like, good to see hockey players getting paid more. NHL gets a little broader, right? Which never hurts. But what about thinking, and this sort of like kind of jumps off what Andy was saying, the number gets to a point where, don't forget, that's a cap. That's not right. And we're not playing, NHL 25 or 26 or whatever's out, where it's like you got monopoly money. Like, these are still owners that got to fork out the money. So not a problem for the Rangers, for Toronto, for Boston, whatever, right? They're like, oh, cool. Like, let's go get some fish. But what about the franchises that maybe already feel a little bit extended and maybe not so much like next year or two, but what about like towards the end of that? Like, some of these can maybe, like, look at the Senators or someone like maybe some of the Canadian franchises that we know just the differences in currency and stuff. Like, are we going to see some of these teams maybe not want to stretch as high? You know what I mean? Because then it gets to the point like in the other sports where it's like, that like, I mentioned I'll mention baseball just really quickly because I'm a Cleveland guy, right? Like, the Indians the Guardians have made it to a couple of World Series or gotten close, like in the last 10, 15 years, with the lowest payroll in baseball. And like, it's people know around here that like the owners are just, they keep it close to the vest. They run it like a business, right? They run it like a business. They don't so much. So anyways, in the NHL, like, you just wonder to see, like, now that we got 32 owners and rumored to be, more in the near future, it's like, are some of these maybe going to hold, and are we going to start seeing that gap create, to Andy's point? Like, just because there is a ceiling there, are we going to start seeing like a $5, $10, $15 million spread that starts to create a gap? I don't know.
Right. Well, and
go ahead, Andrew.
Okay. To your point, I did kind of word it weird too. Again, like you said, this is a cap. Like, that's not the minimum where guys are going to start getting paid. Like, and not everybody's going to make that much money. But I just mean, like you said, there's going to be that gap where there's eventually that cap ceiling is going to be so high. There's teams that won't even be able to touch it. So that's the concern I have. I mean, like I said, to an extent, it's a good thing because there's guys that deserve to be paid more money that will be able to get bigger raises. So there's definitely pros and cons to it. Like, it's not either just a good thing or just a bad thing.
Yeah, there's going to be money out there for these guys no matter what. But yeah, I think, Ben, you're 100% right. There's a lot of teams, and famously the Senators, where when Eugene Melnyk was the owner, operated on an internal budget. And I think as this cap grows, we will see that, because I forgot what the exact conversion was, but when the cap hits 113.5 million in a couple of years, the exchange rate for the Canadian dollar, I think that cap is equivalent to like 165 million Canadian, which for the Canadian teams, that's a lot of extra money to have to be shelling out for the players there. And so I think you're 100% on the nose that I think some of these teams might have to operate on an internal budget. It's not going to be the big teams, your New Yorks, your LAs, your Chicagos, all in Toronto. All the money's going to be there no matter what. They have corporate sponsorships out the ass. They have the money, but your smaller market teams like, maybe Ottawa or Nashville or, teams like that, where you wonder, okay, maybe are they going to be restricted? They can spend more money, but maybe they can only spend 102 million. Whereas other teams are going right to the ceiling to maximize their rosters. I just wonder, this is a steep increase in cap. And again, with so many big names in hockey due for new contracts in the next few years, I think we're going to really I think we're in for a wild ride with some of the dollar amounts we'll see compared to what we've seen in the past. I mean, again, for other sports like the NFL and the NBA, a lot of this is pocket change in comparison. I mean, a bench player in the NBA might make $4 million, where a $4 million player in the NHL is, a decent second pairing defenseman or a good, third line checking player, where it's just kind of crazy, the difference between the two. But yeah, I'm excited for the big salary cap raise, mostly because my team is in salary cap hell right now. But just in general, I think it will be good for the game. But yeah, I don't want to see it skyrocket too much beyond that, because again, I enjoy this league because it's so competitive, because of the salary cap. I was talking to Andrew the other day on the phone of how I've really lost my love for the sport of baseball because it's turned into who's got the biggest money. Now, granted, I cheer for a small market team. I mean, the Milwaukee Brewers are one of the smallest markets in baseball. So I mean, a little bit of that is sour grapes, but just in general, the fact that they'll never, even if they had an owner who wasn't the cheapest motherfucker I've ever seen in my life.
No shit.
They simply don't have the corporate dollars backing the team like the Dodgers do, like the Yankees do. It's not the same, or even the Chicago Cubs, their biggest rival. They don't get that big city corporate backing like, those other teams do. And so where I've lost a lot of love for baseball because it's just turned into a pissing match of who's got the biggest wallet. And literally it came to a head last year. We had New York and LA in the World Series. And, I think most of us would have loved to see, well, the three of us, maybe a little biased, would have preferred to see Cleveland in there instead of Yankees.
Cleveland gave New York. They gave New York a good fight, I thought. Given the circumstance, I thought Cleveland put a good fight.
But it's just, I don't know. I don't want to see hockey, the cap go up so much that it turns into those leagues like that where it's just a spending contest, because that's not fun. And I don't know. I think it sucks the fun out of a lot of sports, and even the NFL and NBA, whose salary caps are obscenely high. I mean, it doesn't feel like it's as bad with those two leagues. The NBA is kind of a different animal. It's just such a different league compared to the other three. But I don't want hockey to become baseball where it just becomes a spending contest. I just would hate to see that happen. This league has its problems, but it's by far, in my opinion, the best sport. And this is one of the greatest leagues when everything's going well.
We're all on the same page here, I think.
Amen, brother.
Yeah. There is one thing I know we have order of operations for show notes here, but Ben's on a schedule too. There are two things I want to do while he's here. We have a couple questions that I want, obviously, Ben's input on, and I want to make sure we do the new segment with him on here. Being
Yeah.
that he
Oh,
is-
yeah.
So I mean, I'm thinking
Definitely.
maybe we should jump into the questions in the new segment.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear the questions first. I want to at
All
least
right.
make sure we get those.
Well, Brian will be real fired up. We have 3 questions this week, so
I know. I'm so
Yeah.
happy.
I'm happy too. They're all from people we know, but all good questions nonetheless. The first one comes to us from Danny in Florida. Which NHL team do you think has the best animal-based logo between the Penguins, the Sharks, the Panthers, the Ducks, the Canucks, the Predators, the Wild, or the Buffalo Sabres? Brian, you are not allowed to say the Minnesota Wild. Pick a different team.
If you have
And
to
I
make
won't
me
say the
pick something-
Panthers either.
If I had to pick a team that's not Minnesota, I would probably say the Ducks. I love the Mighty Ducks logo. I've worn it on the show before, but I have the orange Mighty Ducks style jersey that Anaheim adopted in like the mid 2010s to wear as a third. I always thought that should have just been their main jersey, but their new look is outstanding too. The slightly updated Mighty Ducks logo, I think it looks sharp. I think the uniform is too orange, but I think the logo is outstanding.
Ben.
Read that list one more time. I think there was one in the middle I missed. I want to make sure I'm considering.
All right. We got the Penguins, the Sharks, Florida, the Panthers, the Ducks, the Canucks, the Predators, the Wild, and the Sabres.
Okay. So my
Sabres.
not the Sabres. Come on. My mind goes to like different iterations of the logos too, right? Because I'm thinking over time, like
Current logos.
For me, like I hate to echo, but I mean the Ducks is somewhat nostalgic, right? For guys our age group, but like I think it's sick. I love the duck mask with the cross sticks. If I had to say a runner up though, like I like the Shark too. I think the
Sharks are good.
The Shark's dope. Same idea with like the eating through the stick. I think that's just really cool. I'll give it top 3. Come on, we can make our rules, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the third seat, I've always liked the Wild. I'm not just saying that because Brian's a good guy, but I've always liked the Wild. I thought from when they first came out, and I also like how they've stuck with it. I think there's something to be said for like not always trying to recreate the wheel. And I love the how the river is the mouth, and it goes just like some of the intricacy of the design is cool. Whereas in dead last, I'm putting the Canucks, and I'm sorry, friends north of the border, but they have, if you want to talk identity crisis, that franchise has had 87 different logos. I don't even know where they're at right now or what their main logo is. So
they're going back to an old one.
Yeah. Well, and my favorite one with Vancouver is the jersey that doesn't have anything on it. It's just a bunch of different colored stripes.
Yeah.
Right.
The one where it's the red V, the black V, and the yellow, and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And so, I'm right there with you on that. I would agree with you on the Wild. I think the design, when you really look at it based on the team, I think for the Wild is really good too, which is why other than being a fan of the team, why I'm so fond of the logo. But I think the Ducks, there's just the nostalgia is right on too. I think you're right on with that. And just the design, it just makes sense. There's just something about it that's really good. I've also always kind of liked the Panthers when they did their rebranding, the kind of more, I guess, modern or whatever Panther you want to call it. But when you see that alternate logo where it's the leaping panther, it just looks like a really clean design. The old one was good too. I mean, I didn't hate it
on it right now, but
I mean, that's a good one too. So if I had to take my top 3, I'd probably take the Ducks, the Wild, and the Panthers. The Wild are my favorite, but I was told to not say that they are. So, it is what it is.
Well, hey, I love the Panthers. For me, we're all on the same page with the Ducks, man. I don't think there's really very many people out there that don't like that Ducks logo.
Yeah.
The Mighty Ducks logo, I should say.
You don't like the Sabres? I don't think the Sabres is fair because they just use the city name to make the Buffalo. The city is Buffalo. The team is the Sabres. Sabres are swords. I think that's silly. And
yeah, I agree. However, I will say I have always been a huge fan of Nashville's logo, the saber-tooth tiger. I love that. So if I was doing a top 3, assuming I'm allowed to say the Panthers because no one told me not to, I would say in no particular order. I would say Panthers, Ducks, and Predators for sure. I
There you
love
go.
those logos.
Yeah.
And nothing against the Wild. I mean, the Wild are right there too. Like Ben, like you said, or maybe it was Ben that said it.
Yep.
They've never changed it. It's always been that logo, and it's always worked for them. And I do actually think that's one of the more iconic logos in the NHL. I think almost anybody that's a true hockey fan will see that logo right away and know it's the Minnesota Wild.
I think it's funny that the ear is the moon on the Wild logo. That always kind of makes me chuckle. If you look at it, the moon is actually the ear.
Yeah,
I've just always thought that's funny, but no, it's a great logo. I would agree that the Vancouver is probably the worst one. It's just, why is it an orca? They're not the orcas. They're not the killer whales. They're not the whatever. They're the Canucks. It should just. They had Johnny Canuck as their logo way back when. Just make that your logo. A guy in a beanie or a toque, since he's Canadian. Yeah. Guy in a toque carrying a hockey stick and skating.
That's a Canuck, bro.
That's your Canuck.
Leave it alone.
Or the skate logo. Those jerseys are sick, by the way.
I do love those.
The black with the red and yellow stripes are unbelievable uniforms. So they've got something there. They should get away from the blue and green, but I would have to say you're right on with saying that's probably the worst. Either that or Buffalo, because the team isn't the Buffaloes or the Sabres. So
yeah,
there's a lot of issues I have with the Sabres. I could go on and on. I did dance on the Pagula family's grave after the Bills were eliminated from the postseason, though.
Yeah.
So, we are a football show. We do need to talk about football more. But anyways, go ahead. What's the next question, Andrew? Thank you for that question, Danny. That was a good one.
Yeah, and sorry, Danny, you didn't give us rules, so we did a top 3. So
yeah, we didn't. We have, unless you give us exact guidelines, we're gonna find a way to fuck it up. Believe me.
Yeah. Also, shout out Danny, loyal listener of the show since
lawyer listener, legal representation.
Yeah. No, loyal listener of the show since the very first episode. So anytime he writes in, I'm always excited about it. Another one. This is a question regarding a rule. So there's not really a lot of input to give. It's more of a yes or no question, I guess. And anybody who wants to elaborate on it can. This comes to us from Ron in Wisconsin. He says, during play, if the bench gate is open for a player to leave the ice and the puck is in play and it goes through the gate, the door, is that a penalty?
No, it's not. It's got to clear the glass.
That's and I mean, I talked to him, personally about this, and I said no. I mean, that's not a delay of game penalty. One, it's in the neutral zone, so I guess it depends.
But the short answer is no, just because it's got to go high over the glass.
Yeah, so. Exactly. So I mean, pucks go into the bench all the time. So
now, if the puck hits a player that's changing off, depending on where everybody else is on the ice, there's a chance where you could get hit for a too many men on the ice penalty. So, but as far as delay of games go, no. If it just goes through the open door on the bench, they just blow it dead.
Yeah. So that's easy. Typically a neutral zone face off. So, all right, that was easy. The next one I got to actually read.
The long one?
Oh, yeah.
I was going to say he's preparing for it. This might be
well, I mean, it's in the email, so I gotta get to it.
Oh, it was neck pain.
Fucking open. Here we go. So this was written when Ovi was still 20 goals away. So I'm going to change the 20 to 17 since that's where he is now. This comes to us from Kristen in Ohio, someone we know very well.
I was going to say, I know a Kristen in Ohio.
That even sounds familiar to me.
Yeah. So the email reads, and I quote, "Hey there, fellas. I have a somewhat open-ended, maybe two-part question for you. We know that Ovi is only 17 goals away from breaking Gretzky's career goals record. In your opinion, do you think he breaks the record this season? Or if you don't think he'll hit it this season, I'd love to get your predictions/bets on when you think he'll hit it. Feel free to even pick a specific date sometime next season. Then you can see who got the closest once it happens. From your number one fan, or maybe tied for number one, KJ."
Okay, I love that she signs that off with KJ. Well, I want to pull up. First of all, I think talent-wise, I think we can agree that Ovi's got without a doubt, has the ability to do it this season. I guess the only thing that I wonder is how many games the Capitals have left. Let's say the Capitals have 30 games left. They've played 52 games. So if Ovi averages a goal, pretty much a goal every other game, he'll almost certainly get it. And with Ovi, there's going to be a couple of 2-goal performances in there, or maybe a hat trick somewhere. So I think this one is probably a slam dunk that he gets it before the end of the year.
Yeah,
I agree, and I think it's like the whole feeling too surrounding the Caps this year. Like I think it'd be a different story if we were at this point, but the Caps were shit, and it was just kind of like, oh, that's all they care about is getting Ovi the goals record. Like they're humming, man.
They're a wagon. We're gonna talk about them later.
Don't play a bad game, so it's like when you just factor in the team around the guy we're talking about, like they're going to be up in a lot of games. And what do you do when you're up? You get to shoot on an empty net. Think about that too, right? There was like I don't want to call it a knock, but like some people were saying like, oh, he's got this many empty net goals, whatever it is. And it's like, dude, I don't care how many empty net goals you have if you got almost 800, you know what I mean? Like, but I think for that reason too, I just think the team being so good, he's got a very good shot at getting it this year.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, as long as he stays healthy and on track, I don't see any scenario where he doesn't break it this season. I think I want him to break it this season. Like, I'm so fucking fired up. I was fired up last year. We all knew it wasn't going to happen last year, but at the start of this season, we were like, well, it's definitely possible. And now it's like, bro, you're right there. Just let's fucking do it.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It's like, now could it happen?
Yeah.
Funny to mention, if it does happen this year, I would love the Capitals' last game of the season is in Pittsburgh against the Penguins. Wouldn't that be hilarious?
That would be, yeah.
Now, but as a hardcore hockey lover, I would love nothing more than for Ovi to break this record at home.
Yeah.
The problem is the Capitals' final home game is against the Blue Jackets, so that's a no-go that's a non-starter for me.
All right.
Yeah.
They do play the Hurricanes, who I famously dumped on like a couple days before that. So let's hope it's their last 3 home games are all in April. The 4th, the 10th, and the 13th are in Chicago, Carolina, and Columbus. So hopefully it's one of those 3 games. I'd really like him to do it at home. I would assume it'll probably happen closer to the end of the season now, just because of the injury that he dealt with. And but we'll see what happens. It would be funny if it was against the Penguins on the last game of the regular season. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, I will say I hope he just goes on a fucking tear and he breaks it next month. It's February 2nd as we're recording right now. I hope he breaks it before the end of March. I hope he just goes on a bender and just starts filling in the net. I don't want it to come down to the last game of the season. I want it now. Yeah,
I think again there's a lot of good opportunity there. I'm really hoping it's towards the end of the month, and they got a couple pretty good home games towards the end of the season versus Detroit, versus Philly, versus Florida, versus Buffalo. Like there's some chances there for him to do it. So I hope we really get this. As long as it's not on March 27th against the Wild, I'll be good.
I'll be especially happy if it's on March 27th.
You will be.
As well. So yes or no to this year for both of you guys?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. We're all on the same page. And that concludes the questions.
All right. Well,
so I will say to anybody listening, if you have questions that you want to submit to the show, feel free. You can send them to freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com or contact@freshicehockeypodcast.com. You can also DM us on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok now, because we're on TikTok too. So
till it gets banned again.
Yeah, till it gets banned again. But it's back in America now, so we're on there now. Check that out as well. But yeah, get those questions in.
All right. So you heard Andrew mention it. We have a new segment that we are bringing to this show. It is not a football segment, even though we are a football show.
No, we're not. We gotta stop saying that, man.
Yeah, we do have to stop saying that because we aren't. Although I am going to dump on the NFL in a little bit, but that's a later on thing. So our new segment, we've mentioned in the past that we're pretty partial to the Jackets being residents of Ohio. So I think now, with how good the season has gone for them so far, it's a perfect time to introduce our new Blue Jackets segment. We don't have a real name for it yet. It'll be Blue Jackets Corner, Blue Jackets Junction. I don't know. We'll come up with some kind of snappy
Cannon's Corner.
Fun name. Yeah, exactly. The Fuse. I don't know. But the Jackets are a wagon this year.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it, because I don't think any of us expected them, especially with what happened this summer. I don't think any of us expected the Jackets to be in this good a spot come February. As it sits right now, the Jackets 26-19-7, 59 points in the standings. That's good for the top wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. The Jackets are 7-2-1 in their last 10 games, including winners of 3 in a row. And what's going right for them this year is pretty much everything but the goaltending, really. I mean, Werenski's having probably what will result in a Norris Trophy season if he keeps this up. Marchenko's taken a big step forward this year. He's a point a game. Monahan's a point a game. Voronkov is, about 3/4 of a point a game. Kent Johnson has really turned it on the last few weeks. Fantilli is, I've said before, Ben, a couple weeks ago, that I think Fantilli is maybe 3-4 seasons away from being one of the best players in this league. But they just get Sillinger back from injury now. What are you guys liking with the Jackets this year? It's just been a lot of fun to watch their ride this year.
I have my opinions, but Ben is a devoted Columbus Blue Jackets fan, and I've been waiting to hear what he has to say about this. So I'm going to let him go first.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I'm diehard Jackets, have been since their inception, and I think this is just, for me, so like joyful to see. Like, I feel good for the team and for the players and just for really all the fans, because I think everyone knows, like, in the league as a whole and the media, and speaking on the media, like, Columbus gets very little attention, historically speaking, right? Like,
right,
I'm talking bottom 2, 3, right? And it's fine, right? Like, smaller market, like, you don't think of, Ohio as maybe a hockey hotbed if you're not from here. We haven't had the most success. Also well documented. We've had one playoff series win in the team's history. So for all those reasons, like, it's no surprise. But the tragedy of Johnny and his brother this summer, like, brought obviously eyes and attention on Columbus. And I think, even that aside, which, we'll talk about more for sure, but like, there's just, everyone is on the wagon right now. And you almost is like unprecedented where like everyone that's a hockey fan is like behind the same team. It's
right,
because of the way the circumstances were. It's just really cool to see. I'm talking from everyone that's like in the professional world, all the analysts and just the casual fan, the people on Instagram, even that you read the comments, like there's no trolls. Like, you almost can't with a good conscience be a troll of the team at this point, right? So it's like everyone is behind this team. So it's just really cool to be here taking it in as a fan of since they started and see that happen. And I think, Brian hit on some of the big things. Werenski he's insane. Like, I've been to a couple of the games live this year, and like, you just watch him play. He gets up and down the ice. Like, it's just, a 16-year-old playing with 12-year-olds. He's doing whatever he wants out there. He could even have 20 more points if that dude's got to lead the league in posts too. Like,
he's running a lot of them out there.
Crazy level. And if they did have goaltending, like, I don't remember what the latest statistic was, but if they even had league average goaltending, which they don't, they could be in top 3 in the Metro. So like, This isn't even just a case of like they're playing well and they're riding a hot goalie, so it's maybe not sustainable. So let's enjoy it while it lasts. Like, all signs, like, they can score. Like, if they could just either keep getting their goaltending or maybe a little bit better, they could be top 3 in the Metro.
You mentioned their goaltending. Just a quick aside, and we've talked about this at length before, but Elvis on the year, 896 save percentage. Daniil Tarasov, 876, which that's actually up because I think last time I looked, Tarasov was in the 850s.
Yeah.
So some improvement for Tarasov there. Andrew and I have had our discussions, like, where the Jackets going to go with this goaltending, because if this team is going to start coming into its own as a solid team, they're going to need a good goalie. And that is my only growing concern, is that Elvis and Tarasov, probably not the answers. Sachenko in the minors is just not a pro level goalie. He just happens to play in the pros, I think. And Jet Greaves, who is their only beacon of hope, still has a lot of nights where I just like, he's not quite there yet. So my only concern is, where do they go from here if they're going to continue to build on this and continue to become a really good team?
Yeah, I still stand by what I say. I think Jets, he could still use some more development overall, but I think he's good enough to maintain a solid backup position in the NHL. I really do. He usually performs well when he is in the NHL, but obviously I love having him down in Cleveland. Well, I didn't love it so much at Friday night's game, but
Last night he was good though.
he was good last night. I don't want to get tied up too much on Savchenko because I mean we're on the same page with that. He's
Bummed.
not, yeah, pretty much. When I fist bumped him last night, I wanted my fist bump back. So, I one thing I do want to say though about the Jackets, with Zach Werenski, not to get off topic, but my wife and I went to the game. I think it was on the 14th against the Flyers. We had seats 2 rows from the glass. It was kind of a last minute trip on our end, so we went down there, and Werenski had 2 goals on the night, and was on a breakaway in OT, and I was so ready to throw my hat on the ice, and he didn't get it. They still won an OT. They won on a shootout.
The fire poker move from Marchenko.
Yep. Yeah. That was a great game, but Zach Werenski is like a completely different animal to watch in person. He's like, I would equate watching him on the ice right now in the NHL to putting an NHL guy down in the minors. Like that's what I would equate it to. Like he's just ahead of it. This is a defenseman too we're talking about. And he's incredible. So I think Zach Werenski is like, I don't want to say the poster child for the Blue Jackets, but I don't really know another term for him.
I was gonna say he's leading the team in scoring as a demon. He's doing something right.
Yeah.
No, he's just been unreal.
No, but he has been good. So
Mo's really been playing good too. Fantilli, I mean, he's just, obviously had brought, what was it, like 70 friends and family to the game against Toronto, scores his first career hat trick. The Blue Jackets just torched the Maple Leafs. I mean, I think everybody except the Leafs fans were smiling after that one. That was a fun game. And I know they followed that Leafs game up with a terrible outing. I think it was against the Hurricanes. They got absolutely dumped on, but for the most part, again, I mentioned they're 7-3 in their last 10 and points in 8 of the last 10 and 3 straight wins. I mean, they're winning in spite of their goaltending. And again, I think now Marchenko's really starting to come into his own. And I'm trying to find the right way to say this because there's just no easy way to say it. But I think Marchenko, his role has been elevated with the passing of Johnny Gaudreau. I think he's now had a bigger spotlight to kind of shine in, and I think he's done just that. I mean, he's over a point a game, 21 goals, 33 assists in 52 games. I mean, he's just unbelievable for them this year. His shooting percentage is 14 point. He's almost 15% shooting percentage, which is unbelievable. Voronkov still shooting almost 20. Kent Johnson's over 20%. I mean, they're getting JVR 17%, which is hilarious. I mean, they're just having a really good season, but they're not riding like an insane PDO run or nothing because, again, they're not getting good goaltending. So this is a team that's just really come together. They've been really fun to watch. And again, I think we might see Zach Werenski accepting the Norris Trophy in June.
Go ahead, Ben.
I felt like I had to say it just to throw it in there. If the Jackets make the playoffs and he keeps doing what he's doing,
oh, he's going to say it.
I'm saying he's got to get some hard votes. He's got to.
Yeah.
He's got to. And I say that because, like, I wouldn't say there's a clear runaway right now. Like, McKinnon's leading the league in scoring. He's a stud. We know that. He got it last year. But, like, I feel like the way just the league landscape as a whole is right now, like, I feel like there's runway. You know what I mean? Like, there's a path for him to get there almost if the Jackets can make it. And this could be total homer talk. And you might be shaking your head if you're listening to this and you're not a Jackets fan, but I don't know, man. Like, you want to talk about this? Like, we mentioned Taylor Hall earlier in the show. Maybe a year like that where, like, one guy just, like, gets a team on his back and leads the team in scoring by 20 points and, like, gets them in the playoffs. Like, maybe something like that. That would be awesome to see.
Oh yeah. You know, and there's several things too that happened in the off season that I don't want to say lit a fire under their ass, but they kind of brought this team together. I mean, the most obvious, the passing of Johnny Gaudreau and his brother, and then they acquire Sean Monahan, right before that, notoriously good friends with Johnny Gaudreau. So that happens. And you know, teams in any sports league, they feed off of things like that. But other good things that happen in the offseason. I mean, you know, they get a desperately needed new GM in Don Waddell, new head coach and Dean Evison. So just two great things right there, because that always does things that, I mean, what, even if it's subtly, that turns things around for a team usually when it's needed. And it was absolutely warranted in Columbus after last year. I mean, Jarmo Kekalainen, I think the guy's a clown. So I was ecstatic to see him go. But Don Waddell's also a terrific GM, if you ask me. So I think that was a really good move or good pickup for Columbus. I just think that they have all the tools necessary to make a really good run for the next few years, even. But like Brian said, you know, they need to get their goaltending situation figured out. That's going to be their downfall, because the goaltending is too inconsistent. And granted, that doesn't always make or break a team. Again, a good example of that is the Panthers last year. Sergei Bobrovsky, also former Blue Jacket, notoriously inconsistent goalie. When he's on, you're not getting anything by him, but when he's a little off, he's Swiss cheese. So, and it's kind of the same thing with Elvis. Now, Elvis is nowhere near the quality goaltender Bobrovsky is, obviously, but it's kind of the same thing. When he's locked in, you're good to go. But on the nights he's not, just forget about it. So they've definitely got something to figure out there. Not impressed with Tarasov. I like him better than Sawchenko. I don't know who wouldn't. I think he's an okay backup, but I still don't think he's the right answer. As far as backups go, I think Jet's a better backup than he is, but people are going to disagree with me on that. And we could argue about that all day, but that's just my 2 cents as far as goaltending goes.
Now, one thing I wanted to or considered to try and solve this goaltending issue, I pulled up John Gibson just to see.
That's who I was just thinking about right now.
He got a .913 save percentage. The only thing for Gibson is he's 31. Most of his best years are probably behind him, but he's a good goalie and can help a team that's ready to compete now. My only issue is that it's not really the Jackets right now. I mean, could he be a good stopgap? Sure. If he went to Columbus, he would be. I mean, that would solve a lot of their issues too. He'd probably make them one of the better teams in the league, but they don't quite have the horses to compete with the big dogs in the East, like Tampa and Florida and Toronto on some days. And and this year, apparently Washington, they don't quite have the horses there, but I definitely think that there are going to be a lot of options. And with the salary cap going way up, if they're not one of the teams that's going to operate it on an internal budget, I could see them taking a big swing at somebody now with a little more money, because again, they're starting to show that they're really coming into their own. Werenski, again, probably going to win the Norris if he keeps this up, may get MVP consideration. But they have all these young guys coming through, Marchenko and Voronkov, and Monahan's been playing great, and Ken Johnson's good, and Fantilli and Cole Sillinger. They just drafted Caden Lindstrom in the draft last year. He's 6'4", 6'5", a huge center, and if he pans out as they expect, he's going to be one of the best two-way players in the league, I think. I mean, I think that kid's got a lot of upside, but there's a lot going right for the Jackets. So I think it's time for them to start looking. And I know Don Waddell's a good GM, so I have no doubts he's going to start looking to fill that gap. But I hope he doesn't look within the organization to do so, because I just truly don't see that being the long-term answer. I just can't see it with any of the four main guys in their system right now. And that I just don't see it. Elvis, if he could get his head out of his ass, could be, because Elvis, when he's great, is unbelievable, but when he's off, he's just unusable.
Yeah, he's Bobrovsky 2.0 pretty much.
Just with lower valleys.
Yeah. I will say this, kind of back to what you said earlier. If the Jackets make the playoffs, I don't see a fucking scenario. I'm not saying he wins it, but I don't see a scenario where Werenski's not at least getting MVP consideration. I mean, if they make the playoffs, come on, man, especially given how bad they were last year.
Yeah, I think the storyline will go a long way. The Pro Hockey Writers Association votes on the MVP. And so if the Jackets, with everything that's happened to them, with Johnny and everything, and just how bad the team was on paper going into this year, I think, Ben, you might be really onto something there. where at least he gets votes. I mean, it's hard to stay away from picking the winner as McDavid or Kucherov or McKinnon, these guys that are very clearly the best players in the league, and there's nothing wrong with voting for that for MVP. But yeah, if he leads the team in scoring as a defenseman and drags this team into the playoffs with everything they've gone through, first year under a new manager, first year under a new coach, I think you might be cooking here, Ben. I think you got me on board with this.
Hey man, I hope so. And that goes back to the whole debate that they have every year of like, what's the actual definition, right? And like, is it the most valuable to their team and like the best of that, or is it just the biggest stud in the league, right? So like, goes back to the definition,
and I think it's silly that they kind of have two awards that do the same thing because, again, you mentioned that the Hart Trophy, the MVP is most valuable player to his team. They also have the Ted Lindsay Award, which is voted on by the players for most outstanding players. So usually that's always going to be your McDavids and McKinnons and Makar and Kucherov, you know, the guys that are filling out the stat sheet every night. But I think if they stick to this award as how it's intended, most valuable player to his team, I mean, I don't think you can argue with the defenseman leading his team in scoring and dragging a team that's not ready to compete into the playoffs. Like, I think that's as, you know, that's as Hart Trophy gets.
Right.
And I think Andrew froze up there. He looks like he's
gonna hear me.
Yep. Hang on. We're gonna let him catch back up and then we'll re-add him to the stage. Okay, I think he's actually back as I said that. You good, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't know what the hell was going on my end.
I think it's your internet. Well, I look out my window and I'm seeing a lot of large white fluffy things falling out of the sky. So maybe you're getting some weathering over there.
I can't see the window from upstairs in the old man cave right now. So you hear me all right though, right?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Like on my end, you guys were like freezing and cutting out, and I'm like, is this them or is this me? And then
it was you. We were just chatting along.
One thing I want to ask, because I know we're starting to get short on time with Ben here, but I gotta ask him. We're talking about the Blue Jackets. I told you that, you know, Brian and I and our wives, and then one of our buddies and we'll call her his wife. We're going to the Blue Jackets, Red Wings outdoor game at the Horseshoe in Columbus. Our buddy is a huge Wings fan, so this should be interesting.
So we're making him sit on the other side of the stadium.
Yeah, no, we're not. He's one of our closest friends. Great dude, huge hockey guy, equally as knowledgeable, I would say, as the three of us. I want to get him on the show at some point, and we will eventually. But I mean, he's a busy guy. But I just want to know: Are you going to that game or no?
I'm not going to the game, and I don't know what to say excuse. I got a cool reason, but no, I'm not going to be going to the game.
All right. Is it a cool reason you can share with us?
Oh yeah. Sorry. So.
Oh yeah. Just leave me in limbo. Yeah.
I didn't want to pry, but I'm like, I do want to know.
Yeah. So my best buddy is his second child is due like literally I think the same day. So his wife, understandably so, is like, you're not going. So we planned like me, him, and another one of our friends planned like a guys' day where we're gonna get ice in the morning. We're gonna go skate, shoot some pucks, you know, Chipotle, watch the game, like kick it. So it's gonna be a lot of fun. But I'd be bummed not to be there. But
it's all right, man.
Well, life's more important. Plus, Andrew and I are both March babies, so we're all for more March babies in the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, here, what day?
I'm the 6th. Andrew is the 20th.
Okay, 9th.
All right, dude. March is a great month to be born. Yeah. No. I got a joke to make, but
don't. I know. I knew you were gonna say it. Yeah, let's not go that route. This is a football show, not a sex show. All right. Anyways,
I would say it's your dad's birthday in June. No, I'm just kidding.
Anyways, so Ben, I know we're running against it a little bit with the time here for you. So if you do need to hop off of here, we'll let you go. But we did again want to have you on for the Blue Jacket segment and get those questions in with you on here. So we'll let you tend to your matters of life. But we are beyond grateful that you made time to come on the show with us. And not only were you our first guest, you've now been on with us 3 times, and hopefully we get to have you on again before we do our playoff preview for this season, because that was my favorite show we've done to this point, was our playoff preview that we did with you last year. I had a blast. So always grateful that you're coming on. And again, those of you listening to the show, we'll plug Ben's social medias in the show description. So please go check out his stuff. And if you have any time in your day to do so. But Ben, thanks so much for coming on with us. It was a blast having you.
Yeah,
absolutely, guys. Appreciate you having me again. That was so much fun last time I was on, and good to be here for the reunion. And I was gonna say, what's the next one? 10 years? Like I hope I was gonna get an invite. I was hoping I was gonna invite again before the 10-year, and I think you just teased it, so I'm happy.
I was gonna say I guess you better watch how you talk to me from now. No, I'm just kidding.
So
we gotta get together, like the three of us, for like a game. Like,
Yeah.
now that we all live in the same place, like there's
I'm
no
down.
reason for us not to.
We should record a show from Nationwide and just don't tell them what we're doing. Just set up, do a live recording.
Yeah. Just set up a desk and make it look like we work there.
Yeah, and I'll go live on TikTok so they can see the three of us getting escorted out of the building. It'll be great.
There you go.
I just want to echo what Brian said real quick, man. It's been a blast having you on again. Every time the three of us get a chance to sit down and talk hockey, there's never a dull moment, and I'm very grateful for it. And I just can't thank you enough for, one, just becoming a friend of ours, but two, what you've done for the show has really helped us, just with your presence and your knowledge and your input. So we're very grateful for you.
Stop.
And no, I'm serious. I mean, that's really the episode with you is really what kicked off people listening to this show. Because I mean, we're still, in the grand scheme of things, we're not big, but for what we were expecting, I would consider it a successful show. So, and we do owe that in part to you. So thank you for that.
Heck yeah. Thanks, fellas. Keep it going. All right.
All right. We'll talk to you soon, buddy.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
All right. See you, man. It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at XenoPucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking and feeling like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. The pucks work on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, asphalt, whatever surface you can think of. XenoPucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game or work on your shot off the ice, head over to XenoPucks.com and grab yourself a puck and check out their merch selection. Be sure to follow them over at XenoPucks on Instagram. And remember, nothing glides like a Xeno. So if you're a regular listener of this show, you've heard me talk about the Warrior for Life Fund and what they do. But if you're new to the show, I'll fill you in right now. The Warrior for Life Fund is a nonprofit organization, nonprofit hockey organization to be specific. And what they do is they help military service members and their families who are transitioning back into the civilian world, whether it be coming back from a deployment or any type of overseas assignment, or if they're getting out of the military and transitioning back into the civilian world. And they do that through the game of hockey, as they have their own team of Warrior for Life Hockey All-Stars. It consists of veterans of all types. They do a lot of memorial games for fallen service members, police officers, firefighters, things of that nature. They have a very close relationship and are partnered with the Boston Bruins Alumni Association and the National Hockey League. To give you an example of that, they took their team of all-stars and went and played the Boston Bruins Alumni Association team back on December 7th of 2024. And the Bruins alumni team that was iced that day was the 2011 Stanley Cup champion Boston Bruins team. This is really good for helping veterans because it still helps you build that camaraderie on the ice that you would otherwise build in the military with your fellow service members. And that's such an important process, or important part of the transitioning process, I should say, for a transitioning veteran, is making sure you know you're never alone, because that's the biggest struggle that veterans go through. Again, doing something like this isn't exactly cheap. They do run off donations, as they are a nonprofit. If you're interested in helping out the organization and helping out veterans, you can head over to the warriorforlifefund.org. Excuse me, just warriorforlifefund.org and make a donation today. You could read more about the organization on there and its members, as there are former NHL members that are involved with the organization that are ambassadors. So check them out as well when you get over there.
All right, and we're back. So just want to thank Ben again for coming on. He's always a great guest to have on. So Going forward here, hang on a second. I want to make sure this recording's going properly. The timer stopped, but it says it's recording.
Yeah, it's going on my end. So
okay, that's good. Well, maybe mine is just fucked up. All right. Anyways, so yeah, Ben, great guest as always. Hopefully, we can get him on for this year's playoff preview show too. That would be really fun. I really enjoyed doing that last year. Let's talk. We got a couple injuries to mention. Markstrom. Jake Markstrom of the Devils has sprained his MCL. He'll be out 4 to 6 weeks as well. So the Devils still fighting to stay in the playoffs in that what has now become a really competitive Metropolitan Division. They're going to be without their number one goalie, but I think Jake Allen can hold the fort there for the time being. I think the Devils are a deep enough team where they can weather the storm, even though it's going to there are going to be some rough games for sure, but I think they'll weather the storm and power through this.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be like a this isn't going to have a huge effect on the team. So
I don't think so.
I'll say it's nothing to worry about.
The big one I think that's going to have an impact is Kaprizov now out for over a month for the Wild. He's going to have surgery to repair a lower body injury. I think he's already had the surgery, but the Wild have kind of been struggling a little bit now. They were without him for almost a month after he suffered a groin injury back in December. Towards the end of his time of being out, the team's play kind of started to slow down. And then now they're going to be tested once again because they're going to go at least 4 or 5 weeks without him. And so we'll see what the team's made of now as they continue to try and hang in there in that tough Central Division race. They've slipped a little bit. Now they're trailing Dallas and Winnipeg, and Colorado's hot on their heels. So it'll be a true test of the Wild's strength as a team, but we'll see where they go from here. They got absolutely shelled by the Ottawa Senators last night. So, But good for Kaprizov. He's going to get the surgery he needs. I think this team is much better with him fully healthy. The few games he played between the surgery and coming back from his previous injury, he didn't look as effective as he normally is. He's normally a game breaker every game, and he just was almost a non-factor other than one really good play against Chicago that he got an assist for. So I think it's going to be good for him to get the surgery and come back, but this is really going to stretch the Wild thin to see what they're made of without him. But I digress. We'll see where the team goes from here and how they look to approach the trade deadline now that they won't be able to accrue cap space because Kaprizov is going to be on LTIR. So,
yeah, I would say I don't have much to add to that. I think everybody, whether you're diehard or not, knows what Kaprizov brings to the Minnesota Wild. And I would say he's one of the most underrated players in the league too. So, yeah, I mean, that's a huge blow to Minnesota, but again, with the team as good as they are, I don't think it's anything they can't get past. So we'll see how they end up. But as a guy who's not a fan of the team, I still hope everything works out for them because they have been fun to watch this year.
Yep, I would agree. I mean, as long as look, the guys that stepped up before, Boldy, Rossi, the defensive core is pretty much mostly healthy now. They're just waiting to get Brodin back. So I do think this is manageable, but they can't afford any more injuries with him gone. So we'll see what happens. But
yeah,
again, just wanted to make quick mention of those injuries as both of those players we've named are pretty important pieces of the puzzle for their respective teams, Markstrom and Kaprizov. So I mentioned a few times that, being a football show that we aren't, but I did want to mention the NFL, and we always talk about the All-Star game sucking, and the NFL is having their Pro Bowl games this weekend. And I saw a couple clips of that on Instagram, and it's just depressing. Can we just be done with this All-Star game stuff? Football specifically, the Pro Bowl games are not fun. I don't know a single person who watched them. I'm sure plenty of people did, but it's not. Yeah, it's not exciting to watch. First of all, I didn't even know they did them on Saturdays. I thought they did it on Sunday, but I guess that's
so did I.
I guess that's just the day they do the flag football game. I guess all the throwing events and skills competitions are before. Could have fooled me. I had no clue, but it's just so dumb. I saw Joe Burrow throwing a couple footballs around. I'm like, wow, this is not exciting at all. Also, why are they inside? So yeah, I don't know. They're in like a room. And I'm like, this doesn't even make sense. Why aren't they on a football field? But whatever. I just wanted to make mention, since we are a football show, that the Pro Bowl sucks. So
yeah, that's us, the Fresh Ice Football Podcast.
So that's right, the Fresh Gridiron Football Podcast. All right, let's get to shit that actually matters, though, because the Pro Bowl sucks, but I just wanted to talk my shit and move on. So we talked about the salary cap going up substantially with Ben, and one of the players I wanted to talk about, but we ran out of time with Ben, was Logan Thompson, the goaltender for the Washington Capitals. A huge part of their turnaround this season, and the reason why they are still the top team in the league right now. Thompson comes over from Vegas last year, or after wanting to become the starter in Vegas. Obviously, that's Aiden Hill's job still, so he asked the team for a trade. They honor that request, maybe not in the best way, but they sent him over to Washington. He's now got a .924 save percentage, 215 goals against average. He's 23-2-4 this season. I think it's nuts. He's played 29 games. Of the 29 games he's played, the Capitals have not gotten a point in only 2 of them. That is unbelievable. This guy, if it weren't for Connor Hellebuck having an unreal year too, I think Logan Thompson would walk away with the Vezina. But Thompson still will have a good shot at it. He's 3rd in wins, 2nd in goals against average, 3rd in save percentage. He's having just a great year for the Caps. And again, big part of the reason they are the best team in the league this year. He's been rewarded with a 6-year contract extension at $5.85 million per season. With the cap going up, if Thompson continues to play like this is going to be the best. This is like the sweetheart of sweetheart deals for a goalie. This contract will take him, or the extension will take him until he's about 33, 34 years old. Thompson's birthday is actually in a couple of weeks, but this contract will lock him up for the prime years of his career as a goalie. And if he's playing like this is going to be a sweetheart deal, making under $6 million a year. So good for him. Earned his extension because he's right now is making league minimum. I think he's still on his entry level deal. So he's making league min. And actually, I don't even know if it's technically an entry level contract or not, because he was a free agent. He wasn't even drafted. So I think maybe, I don't know if that counts as an ELC, but he was on a contract making league min, and now he's going to be making almost $6 million a year. So great for him. He's earned it. He's a Stanley Cup champion, even though he wasn't starting for Vegas during that run because he was injured. But yeah, he was a big part of that Vegas team being as good as they were the season they won it. So he's got some pedigree to his name already, and now he's got a big contract to go with it. And I do feel it's well earned for him, and the Caps just continue to march on.
Yeah, I can't believe we're in a world where the Caps are still getting better, which is insane to me. But Logan Thompson has earned every cent of that contract. So I just hope that he continues to play at this capacity for them, and this isn't like a one-off season for him, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, by the way, I did make the mistake of saying the Caps are the best team in the league. Right now, Winnipeg's 2 points ahead of them, but Washington's got 2 games in hand. Worth mentioning real quick, too, the Jets have won 6 in a row and 8 of their last 10. They're
shit.
lately, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew they won a few games recently. I didn't realize it was 6 in a row, but good on them, too. We'll have to talk about them at some point.
Yeah. And I mean, hopefully they carry that on through the playoffs, too. Like, hopefully it's not all just a regular season fluke, and then, once we get into the playoffs, everything starts tanking. But
when does that ever happen to the Jets? Only every year.
Yeah. But back to the Capitals and Logan Thompson specifically, I think he's looked great. I think it's great to go from making league minimum, which is still money that's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, he's still making like $770,000. Like,
yeah,
let's not pretend like he wasn't getting pennies. But
yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd be ecstatic if I was making $770,000 a year.
Yeah.
But to go from that to now a $30 million contract, or more than that, almost $36 million contract at this point, that's incredible. He's earned every cent of it. I think it's good, and I just hope he continues to play this way for years to come. I think especially, with the Caps getting ready to lose Ovechkin, that's going to put a damper on the team down the road. So they'll need a good goalie they can rely on heavily, and he has been that for them. So I'm excited to see where this ends up and how this contract turns out for them.
Yeah, this one has a chance to age extremely well. I mean,
yeah,
I don't want to put the cart before the horse here, because we're still so early on. Who knows what'll happen? But we could talk about this in 4 years as one of the best deals ever. But I don't want to get ahead of ourselves either. Worth mentioning, the Capitals lost to the Jets last night, so it's kind of funny I mentioned both of those, and they just played each other. But that was an overtime game, so.
Go figure.
Nice 5-4 game. Ovi gets another goal, keeps going towards his record. And yeah, Washington just continues to climb up the ladder. Another team that's climbed up the ladder too is the Oilers. They're now 3rd in the league, which is crazy. I knew they had turned it on but didn't realize they were climbing up the standings that quick. Vegas has also fallen off a cliff, kind of. I mean, they're still 4th in the league, but 3 wins in their last 10. It's I'm not sure what's been missing for them lately, but still a very good team. But yeah, Washington is just reaping the rewards of I don't want to say taking on other people's problems, but they take Dubois out of LA for really nothing, and they take Thompson. They get Thompson from Vegas for, I think it was a couple of draft picks. I mean, it was really a sweetheart deal for them at the time. And it's aged even better than that. And Dubois obviously has worked out very well for them. I think he's found a place where he finally wants to play and can have fun. We'll see how well that ages, because it looked like I thought he was having fun in Columbus when he was drafted there, but I guess not. But things are going really well for the Caps, and Dubois has been a part of it. Thompson's been a part of it. Ovechkin's been great, and they just seem to keep getting better. And I don't know what it is about them. They just have some kind of magic to them this year. So I guess let's all enjoy it, because, again, we only have another season or 2 of Ovi left.
Yeah, and that's something that's kind of, I mean, you look, there's a very real possibility. We know at the end of the season at the league, we're losing Marc-Andre Fleury. That's a blow to the league. There's a real strong possibility that we lose Ovechkin at the end of this year too. Those are 2 big names that are, I mean, league face of the league names, I would say, that the league's getting ready to drop at the end of this year. That's going to suck.
Yeah. Also, I want to mention, we've mentioned the Thompson contract extension. Shout out to Kevin Weeks, who broke the news for the contract. Pulled over to the side of the highway on the New Jersey Turnpike to get out of his car on the freeway and record a live video, or record a video to upload it to announce the contract. I thought that was hilarious. Kevin Weeks always has a kind of a fun way of going about doing those, so I just thought that was funny as hell.
I love Kevin Weeks, man.
Yeah, he's funny.
I love that guy.
I dump on the NHL Network all the time, but I love Kevin Weeks. So
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on here. Let's talk about the Utah Hockey Club and how they will not be the Utah Yetis, as I think most of us had hoped. They couldn't. The patent wouldn't clear with the U.S. Patent Agency, so now the team is holding a vote for the fans. The 3 finalist names are the Outlaws, the Mammoth, and the Hockey Club, which is already the team name. So they're holding, I guess the idea is they're holding fan votes at each of their next, well, now 3 home games. It was 4, but I think they've played at home once since then. And they're going to hold this fan vote. And I guess the idea is that they unveil the team name and logo with the new jersey at the draft. I don't know how you keep that a secret that long, but my thought is that based on the fact that everybody was screaming for the name Outlaws when it originally wasn't included as an option, I think that, to me, tells me they're either going to be the Outlaws or the Mammoth. I think there is a crowd that really loves the Hockey Club name, but I mentioned before, that's too much of a European thing for me. I don't think that really needs to be a thing in American sports, or North American sports, let's say. But I think we're probably going to be looking at the team being the Utah Outlaws in June here.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I personally don't hate I don't hate the whole Utah Hockey Club thing, but I very much agree with you in the sense that it's too European.
And there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, look at all the football clubs over in Europe that have, FC attached to their name, or the MLS teams here that have SC on their name. Like,
right.
Again, very, very common thing to do, but it's not really a hockey thing. You don't really see it in hockey except for in Europe. So I don't like the idea of having that as the team name. I didn't mind it as a placeholder, because I liked that they gave the fans a chance to pick the name. But yeah, I think it's going to be Outlaws, just based on the outpouring of support for that name when it wasn't included on the ballot. I think that might kind of be a telltale sign of where this is headed.
Well, and I do think ultimately Outlaws is going to end up being the name. I personally was a fan of Yetis.
That would have been a great name.
That would have been a great name. But speaking of, you're not going to clear it through the patent office because of this right here.
Yeah, stupid cups.
So
drinking out of cups.
Okay.
Bitch.
I ain't pay for no flow ever again.
If anybody gets that reference, please message us on social media. That's that one you have to dig deep for.
Yeah, that's some early YouTube stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
But I do think Outlaws becomes the name, and I don't hate that. I think it's better than Mammoth, obviously. And
If
I
it
don't
was
know why.
Mammoths, I think it would have been better.
I agree, but singular, it doesn't make any. You're telling me the team is one Mammoth? Like,
Yeah.
okay. So
You're telling me the team is one Wild? No.
Okay.
The team is one Bolt of Lightning.
Yeah.
Anyway, last thing I want to get to before we go. We always on our show, one of our most popular things we do is we talk about the teams that are hot right now. And I think we would be remiss if we did not at least shout out the New York Islanders, who have won 7 in a row, 8 of their last 10 games. They're the winners of. They also just acquired Scott Perunovich from the St. Louis Blues. Perunovich, former Hobie Baker winner. Look, St. Louis is a little, it kind of has a log jam on the back end. And I think, I'm trying to pull up Scott Perunovich's player profile here, but I think this is a good pickup for the Islanders, who, again, by no means are they a top dog in the Eastern Conference, but from where to get from where they were to where they are, I mean, at the beginning of January, I had the Islanders as a team that was dead in the water. You can write the season off. Now, if we pull up the Eastern Conference standings, I mean, they're right back in the wild card race. They're 2 points behind Detroit with a game in hand. They're 3 points behind Boston with 3 games in hand. And that final wild card spot, Tampa Bay, they're 3 points behind Tampa, but Tampa has the same amount of games played. But the Red Wings have also won 5 in a row, so they have to battle with them. But just the fact that they're back in this race, Montreal's cooled off. They've lost 4 in a row now. So now the Islanders are back in the mix of this here. And I think adding Perunovich is going to, I think it'll go a long way for them, just because, again, it's a guy who knows his role. He's responsible. He's not a liability. It's an assist machine here. But yeah, I think this is a great player. Again, obviously at the college level, he was outstanding. He won the Hobie Baker. So great player. I think this will help bolster the Islanders, who have a pretty decent defensive core. You know, Dobson's been there for a while. They have Pelech and Pulak, and I think adding Perunovich to this group will help them. Obviously, a lot of it, their success will be on the shoulders of Ilya Sorokin. But again, kind of in the same way the Flames, you know, Craig Conroy rewarded the Flames for their good play. I think Lamoriello did somewhat of the same for the Islanders here. The team's on a heater, so they go out and acquire a guy that can make them even better.
Yeah.
And so I don't hate this for the Islanders. The fact that they're back in the mix is impressive for me. Rattling off 7 in a row and 8 of 10 is insane. So if they can, obviously this is not a sustainable level of play, but if they can just be serviceable 6 of 10 every time the rest of the way, I think they might have something here, especially with the fact that Tampa's cooled down a little bit. The Bruins have kind of cooled down a little bit. There's room here for them to squeeze in. It'll just be a tough road ahead, but they're making the right moves.
This definitely isn't like last year's playoff race, where we kind of knew around this time before even the trade deadline what the playoffs were mostly going to look like. Right now, it's really anybody's game. So that's one thing I like. But one thing I want to say to commend Lamoriello with is that, you know, obviously this is a move to kind of keep the team going in the right direction. But I mean, this is the right time to make this move as while the team is on a heater. You don't want to wait till they die off, or you don't want to wait till your team is in a slump to make a move like this. This is perfect timing for that move, and I think it ideally will work wonders for the Islanders. Again, you hope that this isn't just them getting hot and then it's garbage the rest of the season. Like, you hope this is like, I mean, I personally don't, because I'm not an Islanders fan, but as a fan, you hope that this is the start of something good and that they're about to make a good run. So we'll see how that plays out, but I think it's a great move and it was made at the exactly right time. So that was also a terribly grammatically incorrect sentence.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a grammatical nightmare, but yeah, I think we picked up what you were putting down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's I think that's all I got on the notes for this week for the show. Yeah, that's other than just get those questions in. I mean, we had 3 this week, which I was ecstatic for. I love when we get listener questions, but let's keep getting those in. At some point, we would also like input for the segment on the Blue Jackets we're going to do, as we don't really know what to call it. Do we need to even call it anything, or can we just call it our Blue Jackets segment? I don't know. But
Yeah.
I think going forward, we'll put that at the end of the show. So for those of you who don't care about the Blue Jackets, you can tune out at the end. And those of you who do care can listen all the way to the end. And I think that'll be a good way to structure that going forward to keep it enjoyable for everybody. But also those who want to listen to the specific Blue Jackets things can do that.
Yeah. With that being said, this is our 1-year anniversary episode. I can't believe how far we've come in a year. I love doing this show. I don't see a world where we ever stop unless one of us somehow goes mute in the near future, in which case I think one of our wives would be very grateful for that.
Yeah.
But it's been really fun to do. One thing that maybe a lot of people don't know either is that this is I'm sure this is pretty obvious, but this is a self-produced podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I do, Brian and I both put in work to this.
Uh-oh, I lost Andrew for a second.
The behind the scenes stuff from having
you're gonna have to run that by everybody again. I lost you for a sec there.
Oh, Jesus Christ, dude. Dude, I don't ever have fucking internet problems. I try to record one fucking video podcast and it's a fucking shit show.
It's welcome to the world of live streaming video. Well, so to speak, live streaming.
Yeah.
It's streaming when we do it, but not when we upload it. Anyways, but you were saying?
I was saying, we both put in work for the show, you and I. We don't have anybody that helps produce the show for us. I mean, you edit, Jesus, you edit the video podcast. I edit the audio. I handle all the social media and everything behind it. You do a good job of getting the show notes for the show. We both kind of work on getting guests for the show. I mean, it's really been a team effort in a sense. And I mean, we both have good support systems between family and our wives. We had good friends who followed the show from the start and helped get it out there. It's just been, for two guys a year ago who knew a lot about hockey, but didn't know jack shit about running a podcast. I got to say that after a year, I'm proud to say that not only do we still know a lot about hockey, but we still have no idea how to run a podcast. So it's been real fun. We are on TikTok now. So I will be handling the TikTok side of things. Obviously you're not on social media, so that responsibility falls on me. So this is a good time as any to plug all of that. You can find us on Facebook, Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. You find us on Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, as well as YouTube at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. On TikTok, you can find us with the handle at Fresh Ice Pod. Or you can just search Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast and it'll still come up either way. I'll post behind the scenes stuff on there. Occasionally we'll do a live stream of us doing the show on here. It'll be kind of a behind the scenes exclusive for TikTok followers. But give us a follow on there. Check us out. Just started uploading stuff to it yesterday. So there will be more content on there as time goes on.
Real quick, I just want to interject. You mentioned me not being on media. For the select few of you, it wasn't a ton, but for those of you who did follow me on Instagram, I did remove myself from Instagram as I just have no desire to be on social media anymore. It's just a personal decision of mine, but obviously you can still send in show questions to the podcast handle. So
yeah, I mean, and again, you can send us questions. You email the show at freshicehockeydot freshicehockeydpodcast@gmail.com and contact at freshicehockeydpodcast.com. You can DM us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want. If you know us personally, feel free to text us, send us a question. I mean, whoever you are, we're always happy to get a question. We're always happy to talk about it. If you have constructive criticism for the show, we're always down for that. If you want to insult us and call us stupid, we're down for that too. Anything you want on the show, feel free to send to us. I do ultimately, after a year, have to shout out XenoPucks. We picked them up as the presenting sponsor for the show pretty early on in the show's inception. And they're big supporters of us. We love them. They've been good to us. And they're avid listeners of the show. I can't say enough good things about the guys over at XenoPucks. So, we do these reads for them. but I'm telling you, it's all coming straight from the heart. This is everything that I say on here about XenoPucks isn't anything they told me to say. This is us speaking from the heart. They're a phenomenal company with a phenomenal product. And Warrior for Life Fund's been good to us too, and we're not officially partnered with them at all, but we've had some good guests on the show because of them. And so we're just everything we've been afforded over the last year. I know you and I are both extremely grateful for everything the show has done.
Yep, I would have to agree with that. They've been great to work with. And again, in the year we've been doing this, I just want to shout out all the guests we've had on. Obviously, that was our third time having Ben on, and it will certainly not be the last. We've had Mark Mowers on, who we're hoping to get on here before too long again. We had Andrew Alberts. We had Bob Pizzini. We had
Andrew Dibs.
Yeah, from the Kalkaska Battlers. So we still got to get up there and see him and see a game up there too. So we got to try and orchestrate that and eventually have him back on once we've seen a game as well. But we've just met a lot of cool people doing this, and very grateful for the listeners that we have on each and every episode. And I don't have anything else to say. I think that that pretty well covers our bases. We're just in a lucky spot where we can do this and have fun with it every week. And there's a good enough crowd of you out there who don't mind listening to us. So thank you, all of you, for tuning in. We just can't say enough how much we truly appreciate it.
Yeah, I echo that as well. With that being said, we will be back to your regularly scheduled programming from here on out, barring any interference.
Why don't we not make promises we can't keep?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not taking any unexpected trips right now, so I can tell you that. But with that being said, and for old time's sake, we'll see you guys on the next episode of Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. Take care and comb your hair.